Name is Deepa Goraya. I am a disability rights attorney. I currently work at Disability Rights Maryland and I live in Washington, D.C. Right now at Disability Rights Maryland, I work on Medicaid and developmental disability issues as well as some ADA issues. I work with people who are receiving waiver services under the 1915C waivers under Medicaid. I help them with their appeals for denials of personal assistance services, or they need more hours of personal assistance, or they're denied certain other programs like the Employed Individuals with Disabilities program. So I help them with a lot of administrative appeals and other forms of advocacy. And prior to my work at Disability Rights Maryland, I was at the Washington Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights and Urban Affairs. And there I worked a lot on systemic litigation around the Americans with Disabilities Act and the Rehab Act. And I worked a lot in digital accessibility as well, bringing cases around digital accessibility issues. And I'm really passionate about disability rights and all civil rights. My first memory of the ADA and discrimination was so I'm totally blind, and I went to an all public school for majority of my education, and I went to the my local high school starting freshman year, and I I remember being in AP classes and realizing that the AP exams for biology, or even my calculus, not calculus but trigonometry. I was in trigonometry class and I was also in AP bio later on in my school, and I had to take the AP bio exams or AP exams, and I realized that the biology exam was just really visual, and I was really struggling with how to take the exam and understand the visual graphs and charts and stuff like that. And I realized at that point that this is just not fair. They should have a better way of testing students who are blind with these visual pictures. It was a diagram of I don't know, some internal organ or something, and they were testing you on various parts of that. So it was just really unjust, and I ended up doing well on the exam, but I thought I was going to fail it, and that just really scared me. And I realized I really want to be a disability rights lawyer. This is not fair. And I was also the first and only blind student of my high school, and dealt with a lot of issues around getting my books on time and getting things brailled for me, keeping up with my peers, and so it was just a struggle. And at that point I realized I really wanted to work in disability rights. And the first form of not discrimination, but inequity, another inequity that I faced was when I was applying to law school. I noticed that my first digital accessibility barrier, when I couldn't access the law school applications from the Law School Admission Council's website. The LSAC had a portal where you could apply to law schools through that portal, and it was just not accessible. And I was just shocked by that. I was like, wow, this is the Law School Admission Council, and their own website is not accessible. And so I had to use someone to help me apply to law school and fill out the applications. But then I also contacted the National Federation of the Blind, which I was a part of, and also disability rights advocates, and told them about this issue. And I became a plaintiff in my first ADA lawsuit. So that was, and I realized how litigation or being in law could help change things. Eventually, LSAC, because of the lawsuit, made its website accessible, and and I was not around. Well, I was very little when the ADA was passed, so I don't have any recollection of that. But I know the ADA has made things where people can now be in school. People with disabilities can be in school, mainstreamed with their sighted peers, or with their non-disabled peers, and that's a lot better. A lot of places are physically accessible, but I think now we have to work on digital barriers. The digital accessibility is a new form of kind of discrimination or inequity, and also there's still a lot of discrimination out there in employment. and just various other things like housing, um, voting. There's a lot of work to still do, and disability rights is a part of civil rights. If I could pick one thing to change or one thing that could make things accessible, I would say make update the ADA regulations and the ADA statute to incorporate digital accessibility, because digital accessibility affects pretty much every aspect of life now. It's not just a luxury; it's a necessity to have digital accessibility. It can affect apps like transportation services. It can affect voting, like vote by mail and other forms of voting. It affects being able to do your job in the workplace. If you have inaccessible software in the workplace, that can affect your job, and you can't grow in your job, or you can't do your job. um, it affects so many things, and so I would say we need to update the ADA regulations and the statute to reflect websites, apps, kiosks, all forms of digital accessibility be fixed under the ADA. Like ADA should apply to those places as well. We should be educating everyone about digital accessibility and about people with disabilities. There's a lot of misconceptions out there about whether people with disabilities, me in particular, like being from the blind community, how we do our jobs, whether we can work or not. No one really knows about screen readers and how we navigate the web. So I think that we can do our part by educating the public, maybe kind of having an expose or some kind of media campaign about highlighting different groups of people with disabilities and how we navigate our daily lives, and also educating people about digital accessibility. Like I think digital accessibility should be incorporated from the very beginning into computer science classes, into web development courses. Like everyone who is out there designing apps or going through various design courses for websites or apps or kiosks or whatever, should be knowledgeable about digital accessibility. It's often an afterthought. Oh, we didn't this is not accessible, let's try to make it accessible now. And then it's harder to make it accessible. It's still doable, but it's harder to do it afterward, when you should be incorporating it from the beginning when you're designing something. So and there needs to be accessible documents. Like I come across inaccessible PDF documents or other forms of documents on a daily basis for my job and otherwise. And so we really need to educate companies like Adobe, and even the legal search engines, legal billing systems, all forms of corporate and company products. They're all these companies that design these products and stuff that are people use on a daily basis should be informed of a digital accessibility. So I think we just need to have an educating campaign out there about these issues, and then we can slowly start to change things on a more systemic level.